In the story of Little Red Riding Hood, she goes to her grandmother's house to give her granny a basket of baked goods that her mother made. However, this little visit did not go as expected. In this Law and Order fairy tale story, the police were called after hearing fighting and a loud commotion coming from Granny's cabin. When the authorities arrived on the big scene, the big bad wolf was found dead due to blunt force trauma to the head. Aside from interviewing the suspects, the forensic investigator used DNA fingerprinting to determine what the murder weapon was and who was responsible for the death of the big bad wolf. There are two pieces of DNA evidence. One is the basket of goodies, which has been dented and severely damaged, and the other is a large piece of wood about the size of a baseball bat. Based on the DNA found at the crime scene, we have 4 suspects: the lumberjack, Little Red Riding Hood, Granny, and the 4th suspect who was not at the scene when the police arrived, Little Red Riding Hood's mother. With these 2 pieces of evidence, the forensic investigator finds on the first VNTR locus that 1. The alleles from the DNA sample found on the basket match both Little Red Riding Hood's and her mother. Her mother was not at the crime scene. This is considerable because she did have prior contact with the basket, but she also shares DNA with her daughter. 2. The DNA found on the large piece of wood matches both that of the big bad wolf and the DNA of the lumberjack. 3. Granny has one corresponding well with Little Red Riding Hood and Little Red Riding Hood's mother, and another well with the big bad wolf and the lumberjack. In the second VNTR locus, it is found that 1. The DNA on the large piece of wood again matches that of the big bad wolf and the lumberjack. There is 1 row of wells matching Granny and Little Red Riding Hood's mother, but since it is not both, that means that they are not a match to the wood. 2. Granny and Little Red Riding Hood's mother have the same alleles, both each sharing 1 with Little Red Riding Hood again, which can be representative of their genetic relationships. Since Little Red Riding Hood shares at least 1 allele with her mom, and her mom shares at least 1 allele with Granny in both loci, their maternal relationships are evident. 3. Also, once again, the DNA on the basket matched exactly with Little Red Riding Hood's DNA, with none matching to the big bad wolf. From this information gathered, the forensic investigator has been able to piece together the crime that took place. Since no DNA from the big bad wolf was found on the basket despite its damages, it can be ruled out as the murder weapon. As for the large piece of wood in both loci, it has exact matches to the big bad wolf's DNA, so we can conclude that it was the murder weapon. Now to determine who killed the big bad wolf, we can rule out Little Red Riding Hood, her mother, and Granny as suspects because none of them have exact matches on both loci with the DNA found on the weapon. But when it comes to the lumberjack, in both loci, his DNA is an exact match to some of the DNA found on the piece of wood. With this evidence, we can conclude that the lumberjack used the piece of wood to kill the big bad wolf.